This is an interview with my guy, Kyle Kern, who's a Knicks fan, one of my best friends, and me and him are really big with basketball and all the other sports. We always talk about it. So I chose him to be the guy that I want to interview because a lot of other things weren't working out with some of my interviews. So I said, why not just have a one-on-one with me and my friend and see how it was going to go? And this is how it went. My first question, what or who got you into sports?
The sports, honestly, I think it was like just playing football like with my dad and my brother when I was like really little. That's originally what got me into it. And then it just progressed from there into other sports through like friends playing different sports and like telling me to come play those sports. And then also I think the first sport I played was soccer. I don't know why though.
You'd say that the basketball is your favorite sport out of all of them.
Yeah.
And since you grew up obviously liking the Knicks, the first time you got to see them live, what was like the big difference between seeing them live versus like on TV?
The thing that I just like still tend to notice is like you really get to see like how big the players are. Like some of them will be like 7'3", and you don't really like see that on TV. Like they'll look tall, but like it's on a TV. So like that's a huge difference. And then one is like the dunks, the energy, and the crowd. Like the dunks is like you see a posterizer on TV. You'll see like a great dunk. It won't be the same as when it's in person. It's way more impressive in person for some reason. And then the crowd and the energy, especially at like competitive games, it's a big different atmosphere. It's not like watching it at TV or even at a bar. It's completely different. So many fans in the stadiums, very loud, everything.
Talking about the crowds, how impactful are the crowds for places like these major cities, like how like Los Angeles, like Miami, Philadelphia, New York, like how much of an impact are these crowds like during like playoff series, like for home games or even like uh just any type of series, like when you have home field advantage and all that?
Are you talking specifically about like the tri-state area or
Well, just like the
in
main,
general?
like, because you have like your smaller market cities that don't get as many fans to their
Yeah.
cities, but like the ones that are like actually diehard, like real fans that we all know have like the better attendance and are known for giving like a harder place to play.
Yeah, so like Philly's like I went to only two NBA arenas. It was Philly and New York, and I love the New York arena because Madison Square Garden is the middle. It's in the middle of the city, but the fans at Madison Square Garden, I did go during COVID time. That's the only time I've really been there. But when I went at Madison Square Garden, the fans didn't really seem like as supportive as Philly. Philly was like even during COVID with Philly, it was very supportive. There was like a lot more energy in the Philly stadium. So I can only imagine at the playoff games and stuff like it would be hard to play as a player, but also like besides all the criticism from the fans, it'd be like just like living in the moment, you know, like it'd provide more energy to you as you're playing when you hear the energy from the crowd, I would imagine.
And speaking of how competitive and how the fans are, obviously Philly, New York, Boston, and those type of cities get a lot of heat in the media for coming at players and booing them or being more harsh to players. Do you feel that's wrong? Because I see a lot of people look at like fans booing a player as very disrespectful, but like I know I have my opinions on it, and I know a lot of other people say like when you go to games and a team doesn't perform the way that you expect them to, that like you're using your money to go to these games and they're not playing the way the expectations that you think. Like, do you have an opinion on that?
So like my whole thing is I only buy real like real jerseys when they're Knicks jerseys because that's the only franchise that I want to financially support with my money. So to use that in like as an example, it's like when I spend money on the Knicks and their merchandise, it's like a small amount of money to what they make and complete. But in the grand scheme of things, all these people's purchases for tickets, merchandise, all this type of stuff, like it adds up, and that's how they stay alive as a franchise and they stay in the league. So at the end of the day, yeah, it's like you definitely want your teams to do good when you spend money on them, but at the same time, it's like if the team's roster composition isn't generally like on paper the best, you have to like adjust your expectations. So for fans to be harsh on their team when they're underperforming and they have a great roster, that's understandable. But for example, like the Knicks, like we don't have the best roster, we have like a middle of the pack roster. So if we finish middle of the pack, then that's understandable. I can't really ask for too much more, but there are individual player expectations like that become more severe. Like you've seen it with Ben Simmons in Philly. He was definitely like heavily criticized, and he's still heavily criticized in Brooklyn. So I think that's a pretty deserved criticism. But other than that, it's like if you're spending your money on a team, yeah, you probably would want them to perform better if that's really what you care about.
If you were a pro athlete that knew about the fans and how passionate they are for their sports, would you want to play in those markets?
Well, I think that really just depends on the type of person you are. So for me specifically, I wouldn't care because I know how it is to be a fan, and I'm pretty harsh on certain players at certain times. But I understand like that's all just how it is. It's all how you take the fans' hate. Like at the end of the day, it's just fans are just hating on certain players, and you could be doing a great job, you could be trying your best, and still fall short of the fans' expectations. Or so some fans have crazy expectations, so they're going to be harsh no matter what. So you got to learn to deal with it, I would assume, and I think I'd be able to do that personally. But it really depends on who you are.
Is there a player that you've seen get drafted or got traded here that originally might have not been looked at as having like the toughness or the attitude to play here, but actually turn around and like fully embrace it to like something that no one really saw coming?
Are you talking about Philly or New York?
Just like any team, like any player. Have you seen like a player come to an organization that just like fully embraced it?
So Julius Randle first came to the Knicks, and I was kind of bummed out that offseason because, like a lot of Knicks fans, we didn't expect to get Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant that offseason, but that was like still an option for us. At least it seemed like it was. So when we got Julius Randle, I was a little bummed out because first of all, I really don't like the way Julius Randle plays basketball. So that was kind of a bummer, but he really wasn't seeming to be like an effort. Not like an effort. Like he didn't really seem to be making a huge impact to our organization when we first signed him. So like the first year he was all right. Like he put up expected numbers, but then the next year after that, he got more adjusted to the system. He became our number one guy, our number one option on offense. And he averaged some great numbers. He made the All-NBA, I think, second team. He made his first All-Star appearance of his career. So yeah, he definitely helped us a lot. He turned our franchise around, honestly, because we were on a big losing streak before that. And then it was not this past year, but the year before that, the Knicks finished, it was either fourth or fifth seed in the East, which is like it was a huge improvement from the year before that. And it was pretty primarily responsible to Julius Randle and some other role players, but Julius Randle was really the it guy for us that year.
Her last question. Obviously, we both seen players that came into this league and got traded to teams that they didn't like and they didn't fit well in the style they played for, and having bad relationships with fans. There's any, say like the Knicks were drafting somebody or that someone was getting traded to the Knicks, what would you say to somebody that's like unsure about like the situation? Because like obviously the Knicks are one of the more diehard fans of the NBA, and it can be rough playing there. So like, what would you say to a player like how Julius Randle got brought into the situation, and obviously like he never really got that focal point to like not center of attention on a big mark because he went from like Los Angeles as like a rookie, but then went to New Orleans for a little bit, but then came to like back to a big market in New York. Like, what would you say to a player like that had to come back to like this big stage?
So New York is obviously at its peak. New York and LA are the biggest stages of basketball, and New York has the most historic and probably the most famous stadium in the whole organization of the NBA. So it comes down to this. You got to be able to take the fans' hate, but at the same time, you have to listen to it. So it's a hard balance to have, to be able to not completely tune it out and listen to the good stuff rather than to completely tune it out or listen to everything. And it's very hard, I would assume, from a player standpoint. But if they can really master taking the correct opinions of the fans and actually listening to them and not just doing what some players do and just saying screw the fans and all this stuff, and they're all like, oh, the fans have no idea what it's like here, when they've been fans of the team for a while. Like, of course we're not playing on the court, but I think players don't seem to know that, like, when you're a fan of a team for a while, there's a lot like more that goes into it than just like the game of basketball. So when you're trying to turn an organization around, say like a star player comes to New York, you got to realize that New York, being like the biggest stage of basketball at its highest peak, is a tool for you. So if you bring New York to the top, and you can carry New York to like a 1 seed, which is obviously a very hard thing to do right now. But say a guy like LeBron were to come here and do that, that'd be huge for his legacy and for his career and financial status in the future. So you can use that as a tool, but it's also hard to keep the balance as far as what to tune out and what to not tune out from the fans.